The first time my children saw their mother laugh at their father, they didn't understand why it hurt so much. They only knew that their mother was standing beside a polished black SUV, covering her mouth as she looked at me sitting behind a wooden table piled high with melons. My shirt was faded. My jeans were dusty. My hands were stained from carrying crates all morning. And beside me, my 2 children were happily handing melons to customers. My ex-wife, Jessica, looked at me as though she had just discovered the saddest joke in the world. "Oh my God," she said, laughing. "You actually became a fruit seller." My daughter, Lily, froze. My son, Noah, stopped counting the money in the small metal box. I looked at them before I looked at Jessica. Then I smiled. "Yeah," I said quietly. I did. What she didn't know was that the man sitting behind that fruit stand owned a company worth more than $1 billion. And what she understood even less was why I had chosen to sit there. 3 years earlier, Jessica and I had been married. We weren't rich when we met. We lived in a small apartment, shared one old car, and celebrated birthdays with homemade cakes. I worked long hours building a technology company with my business partner, while Jessica worked at a local marketing firm. When our first child was born, everything changed. I wanted to build something that would give my children a better future. Jessica wanted security immediately. We began arguing about money. Then about time. Then about everything. "You're never here," she would say. "I'm trying to build something for us," I'd answer. Eventually, "for us" became "for me." And one rainy evening, Jessica packed a suitcase. "I don't want to struggle anymore," she said. I begged her to stay. She didn't. The divorce was painful, but I never spoke badly about her to the children. Whenever Lily asked why Mommy didn't live with us anymore, I'd simply say, sometimes 2 people can love their children and still not be able to live together. My company eventually succeeded. Investors came. The little software startup became a national technology firm, then an international one. By the time my lawyer told me my shares had made me a billionaire, I barely reacted. Money had stopped exciting me. Because every night, when I came home, Lily still wanted me to check under her bed for monsters. Noah still wanted me to help with his homework. And neither of them cared whether I had $1 or $1 billion. Then something happened that changed everything. I discovered a small farming community outside our city was about to lose its land. The farmers had been supplying melons to markets for decades. But a corporation had purchased the surrounding properties and offered them almost nothing for their crops. Most of the farmers couldn't afford transportation, storage, or marketing. Their harvests were rotting. Families were struggling. I could have written a check. Instead, I decided to visit them. An elderly farmer named Mr. Thompson took me through his fields. "People don't want charity," he told me. "They want a chance." That sentence stayed with me. So I created a new program through my foundation. We would buy produce directly from small farmers at fair prices. We would provide transportation. We would help them reach customers. And instead of hiding behind an office desk, I decided to spend a month working alongside them. I brought Lily and Noah with me during their summer break. Every morning, we loaded crates. Every afternoon, we sold melons at a roadside stand. The children loved it. Lily learned how to calculate change. Noah learned which melons were ripe by tapping them. And I learned something I had forgotten. There was dignity in honest work. One afternoon, an elderly woman approached our stand. She counted her coins 3 times. "I think I'm short," she whispered. She looked embarrassed. I smiled. "Take the melon." Her eyes widened. "I can't." "You can." She hugged the melon against her chest. "God bless you," she whispered. Lily watched her walk away. "Daddy," she said, "did we lose money?" I shook my head. "No." But she didn't pay. I crouched beside her. Sometimes making money isn't the same as making a difference. She thought about that. Then she smiled. Can we give another one away? Of course. That was the moment Jessica arrived. She had come to pick up the children for the weekend. She stepped out of her expensive SUV, wearing designer sunglasses and a perfectly pressed dress. She looked at the wooden table, then at me, then at the crates. Then she laughed. So this is what you've become? I didn't answer. She looked at Lily. Sweetheart, are you really working here? Lily nodded proudly. We're helping farmers. Jessica rolled her eyes. Your father used to have a real job. I felt something tighten inside my chest. But before I could respond, Noah stepped forward. Dad's job is important. Jessica laughed again. I'm sure it is. Then she turned to me. I heard your company is doing well. I said nothing. She smirked. Funny. You always talked about becoming successful. And now you're selling melons. I looked at the farmers standing behind her. Mr. Thompson was watching silently. His eyes were tired. His hands were rough. But his face carried a quiet dignity. I turned back to Jessica. I'm exactly where I want to be. She shook her head. You know, I always knew you'd end up like this. Then she walked away. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Daddy, she whispered, why does Mommy hate you? I swallowed hard. She doesn't hate me. Then why did she laugh? I pulled both children into my arms. Sometimes people laugh at things they don't understand. The next morning, something unexpected happened. Mr. Thompson arrived at the stand holding an envelope. What's this? I asked. It's a check. I opened it. It was the first payment from a major grocery chain. Because of the distribution program we'd created. The grocery chain had agreed to purchase produce directly from dozens of local farmers. The farmers weren't losing their land anymore. Families were keeping their farms. Children were staying in their homes. And Mr. Thompson was crying. You gave us a chance, he said. I shook my head. You gave yourselves the chance. I just opened the door. Then he hugged me. My children stood nearby, smiling. A week later, the story reached the news. A local reporter came to interview the farmers. She asked who had funded the program. Mr. Thompson pointed toward me. That man. The reporter looked confused. The fruit seller? Mr. Thompson smiled. No. He pointed again. The billionaire. The reporter's eyes widened. Within hours, the story spread. The man selling melons with his children was the founder and majority owner of one of the country's fastest growing technology companies. Jessica saw the interview that night. She called me. I answered. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, You're a billionaire? Yes. You never told me. You never asked. She became quiet. Why were you selling melons? I looked through the window. Lily and Noah were asleep on the couch, exhausted after another day at the farm. Because my children needed to learn that wealth isn't what makes a person valuable. Jessica began crying. I was wrong. I didn't say anything. I laughed at you, she whispered. I know. I was ashamed of you. I know. Another silence. Then she said something I never expected. Can I come tomorrow? I frowned. Why? To help. The next morning, Jessica arrived without the designer clothes. No sunglasses. No expensive car. She wore jeans and an old sweater. She walked toward the farmers. Where do I start? Mr. Thompson handed her a crate. Over there. She smiled nervously. Okay. Lily watched her mother lift the crate. Then she looked at me. Daddy. Yes. Is Mommy helping now? I smiled. Looks like it. Lily ran toward her mother. Jessica dropped the crate and hugged her. For the first time in years, I saw something I hadn't seen in her eyes. Humility. That evening, we sat together under the fading sunset. The field stretched endlessly behind us. Jessica looked at me. You really didn't need to prove anything to me, did you? No. Why didn't you tell me you were rich? I looked at my children. Because I didn't want them. Growing up thinking money makes someone better than other people. Jessica nodded slowly. You succeeded. I smiled. No. We did. She looked confused. I pointed toward the farmers. Look around. She did. Children were running between the fields. Farmers were laughing. Families were loading fresh produce into trucks. People who had once feared losing everything were finally planning for tomorrow. This, I said, is what success looks like. Jessica wiped her eyes. I wish I'd understood that before. I nodded. Maybe it's not too late. Years later, my children would remember that roadside stand more clearly than any mansion we ever lived in. They remembered the dusty crates, the old wooden table, the elderly woman who couldn't afford a melon, and the day their mother laughed at their father. But most importantly, they remembered what happened afterward. They learned that kindness doesn't require wealth. That dignity doesn't come from a job title. That helping someone stand again can be worth more than anything money can buy. And they learned something I had discovered myself. You can be a billionaire and still sit beside a dusty roadside stand. You can own skyscrapers and still carry a farmer's crate. You can have everything the world can offer and still choose to give something away. Because in the end, the greatest wealth isn't what you keep. It's what you give people when they have nothing left to give themselves.